Welcome to the Mini Break, your daily podcast for the big storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Thursday, July 3rd, day 4 of the 2025 championships at Wimbledon, now officially in the books. We do have 2 men's singles matches that were suspended and will continue tomorrow, but for the most part, round 3 is now set. And of course, with the approaching holiday weekend here in the United States, many of you will choose to spend your time with your loving families. Of course, some of you, though, I know, like me, are going to try and sneak in as much time possible in front of those screens, consuming all of the upcoming Wimbledon action. Of course, what I want to do here tonight, as I have tried to do each and every night here of these 2025 Wimbledon Championships, recap all of the action you might have missed here on day number 4. Of course, I want to start by breaking down my biggest storylines of the day. It has been impossible to avoid. We had more upsets unfold here in round number 2. In particular, on the men's side, another top 5 seed falls. 4th-seeded Jack Draper, just not aggressive enough down the home stretch as he falls to, of course, the 2017 Wimbledon finalist in Marin Cilic. What a moment for Cilic. All of the injuries he has dealt with down the back half of his career, to have this sort of crowning moment, to do it in front of his family, to play the level of tennis that he did. A reminder of the importance of repetitions on this surface, having that sort of experience, playing as many grass court matches as he had. He just seemed more prepared for the moment than Jack Draper was. Certainly want to get into that match and contextualize it, because certainly coming out of round number 1, I believe we've had 19 upsets on the men's side. I believe we've had 17 upsets on the women's side. Which of those upsets surprised you the most? Which of those upsets should have surprised us the most? That is a conversation I want to get into here to start today's podcast. As of course, again, we turn the page on round 2, get ready for the start of round number 3. How could we not reflect upon all of those upsets we've seen unfold through early round action? Of course, on the other side of the coin, for the women, the seats got rolling here in round number 2. I know Iga Swiatek was pushed, but she was up 4-1 in that opening set before dropping it 7-5 on her way to a 3-set victory over Katie McNally. Again, about as comfortable as any sort of 3-set match could look. Of course, you had Rybakina cruising over Sakkari. Players like Navarro, Alexandrova, Samsonova, all earning authoritative straight-set victories here on day 4. Again, the upsets have stolen the headlines. How could they not? However, as we get ready for the later round action, as all of us are able to focus our attention span upon a particular match, we've got a lot of potential fun matchups looming with the seeds that have advanced, that have rounded into form. So certainly want to highlight them on the women's side today. And then last, but certainly not least, want to do something I probably don't do frequently enough on this show, something I know all of you tennis fans are looking for. How did the top contenders look? In particular, 3 of them in action here today. Jannik Sinner cruising, Novak Djokovic cruising, Iga Swiatek, how did she actually look in that 3-set victory? I mean, that was the headline right there. I suppose I've offered it to you already in this intro, but want to offer you some better depth on how our top contenders performed. And then we'll get into everything else. We'll talk about the upsets, the matches that went the distance, break down how the Americans, the players with college tennis ties fared. Then, of course, we'll preview all of the action. Round 3 coming up. It is a steady day of play on Friday, but again, round 3 action for the first time. We have just 16 total singles matches on the day. There will be a bunch happening simultaneously, so it still will be very difficult, I imagine, for most to follow everything. Does get a little bit easier moving forward from here, so certainly looking forward to be able to offer greater depth in breaking down each of these matches moving forward. Still, we had a lot that happened on day number 4, and so to catch all of you listeners up, I want to break down everything we saw unfold, get you ready for day number 5, and so much more. Of course, the reason we can do that day in, day out here on this podcast is because of the support we get from all of you listeners. I so thoroughly appreciate so many of you who are joining us live for these podcasts now on YouTube. You, of course, can get a notification whenever we go live by subscribing to the Cracked Rackets YouTube channel. Appreciate all of you subscribers to the Mini Break podcast feed. Of course, men's award show for the 2025 college tennis season now up on the Great Shot podcast feed. You can find the women's award show there as well. Certainly with so many players with college tennis ties. You think about an August Holmgren, still alive, a Nuno Borges, still alive, Emma Navarro, Danielle Collins, they're each still alive. Feels like every major championship event, more players with college tennis ties emerge with greater success. You can follow the stories of these players from the start by following along with our college coverage. Again, to catch up on this past year, go check out our award shows, now available on the Great Shot podcast. You can hear from a bunch of these players as well. We've had August Holmgren on the show. We have had Nuno Borges on the show. We haven't had Navarro or Collins yet, but we're going to have them at some point. I promise all of you listeners. Anyways, again, a lot of great content on the Cracked Interviews podcast feed. Appreciate all of you who are checking everything out. And, of course, a shout-out to the support we get from our friends at the Laurel Springs School to learn more about why they continue to remain among the best private online schooling options in the country. Visit their website, laurelsprings.com today. Laurel Springs, proud partner of the Mini Break podcast feed. All right, let's break down all of Day 4's action. Let's start where we have started just about every podcast here for these 2025 championships at Wimbledon. More upsets headlining the day's action. Of course, the biggest amongst them, certainly the fall of a guy I had as one of my top 4 contenders entering this tournament. I had him losing in the quarterfinals because he was going to run into my number 3 contender, a guy who has made 6 straight finals at this event in Novak Djokovic. But I talked about it. He was my most intriguing player coming into this event because certainly those of us who grew up as a tennis fan in the Andy Murray era, we grew accustomed to the scrutiny Murray faced, particularly from the domestic press and the domestic fans, all there so thoroughly rooting on his success. Ultimately, obviously, he got over that threshold, wins that title in 2013. That circus has yet to follow 23-year-old Jack Draper as he continues to inch closer to, dare I say, being worthy of that caliber of coverage. Certainly Indian Wells champion this year, semi-finalist at the U.S. Open last season, made another 1,000 level final on the clay. Obviously now disappointing losses for him, Bublik, Cilic, respectively, these last 2 majors, and some themes between those 2 matches echoing across the British Channel. But certainly for Jack Draper, the idea of him facing off against Novak Djokovic on a center court in a quarterfinal, that would have been the coming-of-age moment. It would have been, for Jack Draper fans, there were 2 eras. You weren't a fan before that match, and then you watched that match, and you followed him every Wimbledon Championships moving forward. Certainly that was a scenario I was rooting for just first and foremost as a tennis fan. Not to say anyone would root against Marin Cilic. How could you? A guy who was as consistent as anyone of his generation, one of the few players who managed to break through and win a slam title in the Big 3 golden era. Of course, also made multiple slam finals on top of that as well. We'll get to the Cilic piece of it all in a moment. But certainly with just the pace of that match from the start, again, Marin Cilic grabbing the late break in set number 1, that authoritative return of serve on the set point that kind of dictated the fact that Cilic was willing to be the aggressor in bigger moments far more than a Jack Draper who you felt like was just trying to feel out the Cilic, who's 35 years old, I want to say? Yeah, 36-year-old, excuse me. It felt like Jack Draper was massaging the ball. Yes, he won a lot of free points on his serve in set number 1, but under 60% clip in that first set on the first serve. It felt like Cilic had so many clean looks on the second serve. And again, of the 8 second serve points that he won, which, by the way, it was a set that featured 1 break of serve, of the 8 second serve points that he won, 6 of them, the return just must have gone unreturned from Draper after that. And just it speaks to Cilic recognizing and understanding the necessity to take an authoritative cut in a moment like that. Set number 2, again, Cilic grabs an early break of Jack Draper, and certainly in that set, that was, Draper had 1 look on the return of serve. It's just too many returns down the center, sitting up, shoulder or waist height for Marin Cilic to just bunt down upon. And by the way, the Cilic inside-out forehand today was spectacular. You look for Marin Cilic, who made over 16 aces here on the match, made just 57% of his first serves, but won 78% of those, 27 of 45 on the second serve, fought off 5 of the 7 break points that he faced, the big number, 53 winners against 34 unforced errors, and he only came to the net 14 times. He was bunting down on forehands. There's the example of the on-the-run forehand. He hit 3-all 15-30 in the opening set where you saw some of that outer third magic. I have said oftentimes on this podcast, Cilic was the model with which afterwards players like Medvedev, Zverev, all these 6'6", freakishly fluid athletes who can sustain, again, a level of tennis and baseline, I don't want to say baseline competence because they're far better than that, but just players who have the skills of a 6'2" person, the fluidity of a 6'2" person, but then the wingspan and the additional power on serve that comes with being 6'6", like Medvedev and Zverev followed in the mold of that Marin Cilic model, and you certainly saw the best version of that Marin Cilic today. And again, let's go to the glass half full here, because that's what we try to do here at Cracked Rackets. For the 36-year-old who has worked his way back up the rankings, you look for Marin Cilic, who here in 2025 has been grinding away at the challenger level. He's 21-10 overall this season. Of those 31 matches that he's played, 20 of them have come at the challenger level. By the way, he made 3 challenger finals, won 2 challenger titles in building back his ranking into the top 100. Obviously now to have this sort of success where, by the way, he lost final round qualifying at Roland Garros this year. Now gets wins over Collignon, Draper into round 3, where he has a very advantageous matchup against a Jaume Munar, who obviously pulled off the upset in round number 1 over Bublik. A Munar who, by the way, played 27 majors. Shout out to @Luca Beck, Luca Branchet for the stat. Munar had played 27 majors. This was his 27th major. It's his first third round at the majors. A guy who broke through on the clay courts and has been most known for his clay court success is finding his best major on the grass courts, which also speaks to earlier this year when he had his biggest results on the hard courts this season. Who was it? I'm blanking on who Munar beat earlier this season. He did make round of 16 in Rome. That's to be expected. It was Miami, right? Yeah, he beat Medvedev in Miami. That's what it was. So now he's beaten Medvedev in Miami. He beat, obviously, Bublik on the grass courts, and he's reached his first third round at a major. You look for Jaume Munar with this sort of success. No shock to learn that he is up to number 50 in the live rankings for the first time in his career. Not too shabby for the 28-year-old. Not your breakout player of the year, but certainly having one of the most improved, like second, third-tier candidates. Still, that's ideal for Marin Cilic, who, by the way, became the 3rd oldest player. Trails just Ken Rosewall and Roger Federer. 3rd oldest player to earn a top 5 victory at a major event. Of course, you look for Cilic. It's going to be his 40th round 3 at the majors in his career. It's his first since the 2022 U.S. Open. You look for Cilic, it's his first top 10 victory at a major since the 2022 French Open, which of course he reached the semifinals of. And people forget he was a top 5 contender going into that 2022 Wimbledon, which was not that far removed. Just, again, usually when you're 36 and you've dealt with the sort of injuries that he has, you don't come back the way that he has. So, again, authoritative in the biggest moments. Late break in set number 1. Early break to just kind of ride you could tell Draper would let that late break linger in his head. Cilic immediately able to capitalize. And then another late break where Draper gets a little shaky. He really probably should have lost the match on the match point, 30-40 point. Shanks a forehand. It finds its way back in. Cilic certainly played one of his most tentative points of the match there. Ultimately pushes a forehand cross court just wide. Draper able to survive that match point. But just again, so few first serves down the home stretch of that match for Jack Draper, and the number that he is just going to be beating himself up over. Jack Draper, for this match, 8 of 10 at the net, 80% conversion rate. That sounds good, right? How could you only go to the net 10 times when you have Jack Draper's serve? And he ultimately made 62% of his first serves. He hit 14 aces. I know Cilic has a lot of length and has a lot of strength and can make sound contact and force a tricky first volley for you. But 36-year-old multiple surgery Marin Cilic is not going to be accused of being fleet of foot. And you had to get him stretched, force him to beat you on the run, repeatedly. You're 8 of 10. He wasn't beating you on the run repeatedly. Make him hit 3 passing shots consecutively. And if he hits 3 consecutively, fine. Then maybe you reconsider the tactic. But there was never even a moment for Jack Draper. And a lot of it was because the +1 just went by as Marin Cilic when he knew he didn't hit the return well enough. Did a great job conserving his energy. Played a brilliant match. But it was just so tentative from Jack Draper today, and you cannot afford to be this tentative in a moment like this. Now, ultimately, Draper, with all the other upsets, he's going to be fine. He's sitting at 4th in the live rankings. Yeah, Fritz might catch him. Djokovic, if he wins the title, can catch him, but he's leaving top 6 in the world. You look for him in the points race. He's sitting 4th. Djokovic, yeah, probably going to catch him. Maybe Demon catches him, but he's not falling lower than 6th in the points race either. Jack Draper's just fine moving forward. It's just a disappointment because, again, certainly given the openness of the draw, all the other upsets you have seen, given the lefty's skill set and prior success on the grass courts, look at what he did last year beating Alcaraz on this surface. You would have, again, Cilic, a really tricky opponent, and what a moment for Marin Cilic. You could see the joy in his face as he kept fist pumping back to his children who were sitting in his player box after the match, trying to get them fired up, and God, how cool would that be to pull off a match like that, given all they've seen him go through to try and get healthy, and now they get to see why he was doing all of that for a moment like this. Some people wait a lifetime. People have argued for a moment like this. What a moment for Jack Draper, and certainly, for Marin Cilic. Knocks out Jack Draper again, a 4-set, 6-4, 6-3, 1-6, 6-4 victory. The question really becomes from there, where does this rank on the hierarchy of the 19 upsets we have seen so far on the men's side? Let me say that again. 19 upsets so far on the men's side through 2 rounds of play. Ben Shelton hasn't finished his match. He's going to serve for the match when they resume play tomorrow. They suspended it, him up 5-4. Was it the right decision? You could argue no. When you're that close to the match, let him serve it out. Others have argued they probably should have suspended it 20 minutes earlier. It's tough to say. 5-4 at that point. Why not just let the kids play? But certainly, again, really, really impressive stuff. Shelton on the precipice of it. All of that is to say, so there is still one more seed competing in round number 2. So you might have a 20th upset. But of the 19 upsets, I've made a power ranking, and I think 8 of them, probably 7 of them, but I included an 8th anyways. I think 8 of the 19 are worth further discussion. Norrie over Tiafoe yesterday in 4 sets, kind of blitzed through it. Francis coming off of a quarterfinal. Norrie had beaten Medvedev at the French Open, so we'd gotten a taste of a victory like this from Norrie before. And of course, Norrie at his best was a top 15 player in the world. It's a grass court. He's in front of a home crowd. Like that, of course, is always going to end up being a factor. 8th. Worthy of mention because it was 4 sets, but 8th because I thought Francis really had an opportunity there. 7, Rinderknecht versus Zverev. I mean, you're the 3 seed. You can't be losing round 1 matches, not when you make 75% of your first serves the way Zverev did in that match, not when you're up 40-love in the game. You get broken in the 5th set. But Rinderknecht had the skills on paper, certainly. Big server who wants to get forward, take advantage of the tentative and reactive defensive court positioning of Zverev. You know, again, Rinderknecht did that to the best of his abilities. So certainly a surprising upset, but the foundation was there. I actually have Cilic Draper as 6th on my list. Again, Jack Draper should have won this match. But Marin Cilic has been a top 5 contender at Wimbledon this decade, in my mind. Go check the podcast film, 2022. It was a great moment for Cilic. He's been really good at the challenger level. And again, when his feet are under him, he still strikes the ball like the best version of Marin Cilic. If anything, maybe he's more proactive and being aggressive now, knowing that he has to be. Not the mover he was at his best, but it's still Marin Cilic on a grass court. That's a tough one for Jack Draper. I have Navone over Shapovalov in 4. Go watch that match. Where was Denis Shapovalov standing against a guy in Navone who is so thoroughly known for his clay court success? That's a bad loss for Shapo. That has to be 5. Bellucci over Lechechka in straight sets is 4. Mind-boggling. Still haven't grappled with that one properly from yesterday. A great win for Bellucci, who's had the best season of his career, but I thought Lechechka was going to reach a quarterfinal. Boy, was I wrong. Ferry over Popyrin. I mean, again, Popyrin hasn't been playing particularly inspired tennis, but Arthur Ferry's been dealing with so many injuries. And 4 sets for Ferry. Yeah, that's got to be 3 on the list. 2, Bonzi over Medvedev. I know, probably you guys are thinking, you're not going to mention Bonzi over Medvedev. Of course I am. Medvedev made back-to-back semifinals on the grass courts, and even if this year had been not his best, he reached a final in Halle 2 weeks ago. Like, there were enough signs there to think, yeah, Medvedev should be able to steady his way through. We'd like to see the battle with him and Fritz projected that we had in the round of 16, and just like, that didn't happen. And it was the same struggles with the serve in the biggest moments that have just plagued him for 18 months now consecutively. Bonzi has been solid. That's a top 100 guy, but like, that's not a loss Daniil Medvedev has taken, especially on a non-clay court in the last half decade plus. So I think that had to be 2 on the list. That's what set the tone, it felt like, for everything that followed. Number 1 on the list, it's not going to be Tsitsipas, injured. Musetti, injured. Rune, 5 sets for Ziari. Welcome to clay court tennis, big server. He has success. You know, again, like Felix losing to Struff today, no. Holmgren over Mahac, certainly from a rankings perspective, from a pedigree perspective, but having known August Holmgren like I do, this is the surface where he can pull off a win like that. You should probably give him a shout-out. We'll talk about him plenty later. Brooks Beaver Griekspoor, no. Berrettini losing in 5, but how healthy was he? I think number 1 is pretty clear. And I think it's got to be Sebastian Ofner's victory over Tommy Paul today. Ofner, a 4-set, 1-6 opening set deficit. Again, Ofner 1-6, 7-5, 6-4, 7-5. His serve was untouchable in sets 2, 3, and 4. In fact, you just look at the numbers. Set number 2 made just 36% of his first serves, 11 of 13 on those first serve points. Set number 3, up to 53%, 14 of 17 on first serve points, fought off the 1 break point he faced in that set. And then set number 4, again, just a 59% first serve percentage, 21 of 29 on the first serve, fought off all 4 first serves that all 4 break points that he faced. He just kept coming up with just dimes, like slice wide, deuce side, slice T, ad side, flat into the body to jam Tommy, and then a backhand line, whatever it may be. The backhand line, he hit 30-15 in the game. He served things out, 6-5 in that deciding set after, again, Tommy had a bunch of breakpoint looks in the games leading up to getting broken at 5-all. Ofner closed things out with authority. And you look for Sebastian Ofner, who now for his career, it's very interesting. For his career, 4-17 against top 20 opponents overall. 3 of those 4 wins have come at the majors. Beat Jack Sock, 2017 Wimbledon. Shout out Jack Sock reference. Beat Sebi Baez last year, 5 sets, Roland Garros, and now again the win over Tommy Paul here at Wimbledon. He's into the 3rd round of a major for the 4th time in his career, 2nd time at Wimbledon. He's done it twice at Roland Garros as well. Ofner, who had fallen outside of the top 100, back up with this result, 27 spots to 138 in the live rankings. This one surprised me. A lot of people, including my dear friend Gil Gross, had Tommy Paul amongst their top 10 contenders entering this 2025 Wimbledon. David Kane had him amongst the most intriguing players. I mean, again, made quarterfinals Roland Garros, made semifinals Rome, had a really good clay court season and a build-up to this, even if he lost to Dan Evans 3-set in his one warm-up match at Eastbourne. Looked really sound in his first match against Joe Monday. Didn't have it today, and the forehand in particular was the thing that felt like sprayed on Tommy the most. You look for Tommy in this match overall. Again, the numbers seem, 23 winners to 42 unforced errors. Anytime he tried to pull the inside in forehand, he'd pull it wide, and then he'd start to pull it long, and just every adjustment felt a little off. The offense was just not easy for Tommy unless he had a big first serve and was able to get in behind it moving forward. Tommy also, this was not a clean serving match. Tommy made just 53% of his first serves, Ofner 47%. I mean, Tommy 4 of 14 on breakpoint chances to Ofner's 4 of 4. Tommy had a million chances in this one. Just Ofner found a big first serve whenever he needed it, or a big, I say slap line, but a redirect line is the more, because he earned it, and you do it as frequently and as well as he did in this match. Again, slap feels like the wrong connotation. I think this is still the most surprising upset to me of all of the upsets. Again, Bonzi certainly over Medvedev is right near there. But Ofner had not played particularly inspired tennis of late. I think the ranking reflects as much. Obviously, he had dealt with some injuries as well. And now just to beat Tommy like this, after losing that first set 6-1 the way he did, This was the most shocking of the upsets to me. And again, 19 seeds eliminated thus far through round number 2. 19. I think Tommy's upset surprised me the most. But more broadly, like, should we be surprised like this? Isn't this what we have seen seedlings of all season long from the men? I mean, again, other than Sinner and Alcaraz, who have captured the 2 majors, and when they're in the draw, one of them's winning it. But when we didn't have Sinner, Draper wins Indian Wells. When we didn't have Sinner, Menchik wins Miami. February, Tsitsipas, Rublev. Like, how weird are those titles in retrospect? And everything that's happened where we don't have those two men. Like Casper Ruud this year. I mean, it's Casper, so him winning a title on clay courts makes sense, but like we didn't have Sinner or Alcaraz in that tournament. Someone had to win it, so I guess it made sense that it was Casper on the clay, but obviously all the slam, early losses for Medvedev, Fritz before this event, Casper's not even playing this Wimbledon. You know, again, like, should we be surprised? Probably not. All of the signs have been pointing towards this. God, does this mean there are so much pressure on the shoulders of so many men? And the urgency ratings at the 2025 U.S. Open in the men's singles draw, it's just going to be fascinating. And so, certainly, again, chaos continues. 4 more upsets here today. Cilic knocking out Draper, Ofner over Paul again, Holmgren over Mahat, Struff over FAA. We'll get back to those a little bit later. Let's move over, though, now to the women's side of things, because certainly it was a polar opposite story here on day number 4 for the women. And for the first time, like, you got to look at who the top contenders might just be on the women's side moving forward. In particular, 3 names I want to mention. Let's start with 11th seeded Elena Rybakina. Rybakina 6-3, 6-1 victory over Maria Sakkari today. I mean, it was dominant. I don't know what else to say. She won 19 of 21 on first serve points. Faced just 1 break point in the match, and yes, she was broken, but 23 winners to Sakkari's 5. Like, she had Sakkari on a string, and she's returning serve particularly well through these first 2 matches. And look, it speaks to the Elena Rybakina story this 2025 season. I know it's felt like to some extent the floor has fallen out from underneath her. It really hasn't. She's 31-12. 31-12 overall on the year. Again, she's top 10 in total victories here on the season. You look for Rybakina. She's now up to 8th in the points race. She's currently sitting back up now. Well, she's currently sitting at 13th in the live rankings because still has points to defend from last year here at this event. But again, 8th in the points race here this year. Obviously, she lacks signature victories, and that gets to the 2 Rybakinas, against whom she should beat. Rybakina 29-4. 29-4 against opponents ranked outside the top 20 this season. Beating who she's supposed to beat in one of those non-top 20 losses was, again, to a player in Belinda Bencic, who certainly has played top 20 tennis this year. It's the lack of signature victories. She's 2-8 against the top 20 here this season. Obviously, the big tests come now. She gets Clara Tauson, a fellow big hitter, next. Going to be introduced to some pace. And then on track for the marquee matchup. Might be the matchup that defines this 2025 Wimbledon, the potential Rybakina-Swiatek round of 16 battle ahead. But it's, again, just quietly Rybakina cruising towards another round of 16 date with Swiatek. And, again, you look for Rybakina 31-12 overall in the year. 3 of those losses are to Iga. Like, another one of them where she had match points against Sabalenka. She's been really close in a bunch. She was up a set 6-1 at Roland Garros against Iga. She hasn't gotten over the finish line in any of those big matches this season. I'm not going to be here to advocate for it, but she has been extraordinarily close. And if she finally does break through and the totality of all the other success finally leads to the signature marquee result she's been looking for, I really do think it should shock no one. She's won this event before. I saw a stat courtesy of our friends at Opta Ace, best in the business, a must follow. She is top 5 in win percentage in history on the women's side at Wimbledon. She's 38-13 in her career on the grass courts. 38-13. Like, against top 10 opponents on the grass courts, for what it's worth, you look for Elena Rybakina, courtesy of our friends at Tennis Abstract, 2-4, 5-6 against the top 20. Like, again, this is the surface where as soon as she won that 2022 Wimbledon title, I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I bet Rybakina is going to do this a bunch moving forward as well. I'm just saying, obviously, things get a lot tougher from here. Tossing in Swiatek, the potential most likely back-to-back projected opponents. It's really fun because it's a test for Elena Rybakina. It's the only test she hasn't passed here in this 2025 season, and all signs point to her being ready to do exactly that. So she is certainly the most dangerous of the Sabalenka, Swiatek are such obvious contenders, and given everyone else who's fallen, Rybakina now is too, but you could sense it before this tournament began, and certainly things have played directly into her favor. It's also played exactly into the favor of 18th seeded Ekaterina Alexandrova, who I'm not surprised by her 6-4, 6-love victory over Susan Lamons. But this is just the 11th round 3 in the career of the 31-year-old Alexandrova. And Alexandrova, who's been on tour for 10 seasons now consecutively, what's Alexandrova's career record? She is 217 and 164 in tour level matches. But this is someone who's won over 20 matches now in 7 consecutive seasons. She's won over 20 matches in 7 consecutive seasons, and this is just her 11th round 3 at the majors in her career. Just the second time she's done it at Wimbledon. That's shocking considering you look at her career record on this surface, where overall for her career on the grass court, she is 45 and 21 overall on the grass courts, and it's just her second career Wimbledon third round. That does not compute. And she has made the round of 16, of course, at this event. That was back in 2023. She lost to Sabalenka. Ekat's also never made a quarterfinal at the majors in her career. Things have broken perfectly for the 30-year-old. You look for Alexandrova, who, again, in her section of the draw, she's got Zeynep Sonmez next. I think it's a third round at a major for Sonmez, if not certainly inexperienced in the later rounds of a major, although an excellent straight set victory today for the 23-year-old. Then she'd have the winner of Bencic-Kochireto. Those are the 2 names left she would have to face to reach the quarterfinals. She is a 56% favorite, according to the Tennis Abstract singles forecast, to reach the quarters. The only woman who the singles forecast has more likely to reach the quarterfinals right now than Ekaterina Alexandrova is Aryna Sabalenka. She's never made a quarterfinal before. It's fascinating. The numbers, the recent form, the pedigree on the grass courts, the draw has broken perfectly for Ekaterina Alexandrova. And as we know, her line drive tennis, her aggressiveness, that ability to hold the baseline, the ability to get you stretched outside the alley into the outer thirds with her serve and then pull you from there. You look for her in her career on grass courts. Ekaterina Alexandrova 7-9 against top 20 opponents. She's not even going to have to face top 20 opponents to reach her first quarterfinal at the major. The pathway is there for Ekat to do it. Again, this is a fun storyline to monitor I'm writing it down to tweet it out afterwards. No one steal it from me if you're tuning in live. Alexandrova tweet, because it's one of my favorite storylines I think that I will be following the rest of the way here. Keep an eye on the 18th seed. And then last but not least, looming dangerous, and the moment you say this is when you get in trouble. But what about the 26-year-old Ludmila Samsonova? Her power tennis first broke through, of course, on the grass courts. You go all the way back to that 2021 run to the Berlin title where she beat Vondrousova, Keys, Azarenka, Bencic, Kudermetova. Then makes the round of 16 at that Wimbledon as well. It felt like her power tennis was just going to be a staple of our lives moving forward. You look for her since that 2021 run. 2023, loses first round Wimbledon. Last year, third round loss to Kalinskaya. Made semifinals Berlin where she beat Pegula, beat Osaka, beat Anisimova in the lead up to this Wimbledon. Now wins over joint star Dubseva. She's dropped a combined 8 games through 2 matches so far. When Ludmila Samsonova gets hot, you're just in trouble because she has that sort of take the racket out of your hand power. She's been a long time weekend privileges invitee to Serena Williams Power Tennis Country Club. We're keeping an eye on her. Could she get hot and sustain it for 2 weeks? Well, we've seen it, just never at a major. 33 and 16 in her career on grass courts. Again, you look at, I mentioned the Alexandrova side of the draw for Samsonova. Her pathway to a quarterfinal, she's favored, although it's going to be a really tricky match. Her Kasatkina, round number 3. And then she'd face the winner of Yastremska and Buzis-Minier. A lot of parallels between the Samsonova-Yastremska games. You look for Ludmila Samsonova. It's her 8th career round of 32, but another player who has never made a quarterfinal in her career. 2 players with exceptional opportunities to do exactly that. Alexandrova, Samsonova, both earning definitive straight set victories here today. Of course, Emma Navarro probably belongs on this list, quarterfinalist at this event last year, but you all know the Emma Navarro story, and she was really good today, a 1-2 win over Kudermetova. This is the best she's looked these first two matches in a while, through two matches at an event. And then Mira Andreeva, 1-6 over Lucia Bronzetti. She's finding her sea legs on this surface, and again, is in that competes so well, has so many skills athletically, tennis-wise. Even if her game is least suited for success on this surface, you're just not counting out Mira Andreeva yet. So certainly the women's seeds settling in: Andreeva, Navarro, Rybakina, Alexandrova, Samsonova, all definitive straight set victories on day number 4. Sets them up for big opportunities moving forward at this event. And then, last but not least, let's talk about the headline performers on the day: Sinner, Djokovic, Swiatek. Let's start with Iga. I mean, certainly up 4-1. Thought, all right, this is going to be another maybe double breadstick performance, a quick trip to the bakery for Iga. Up 4-1, her forehand fell apart, and too often that's been the story for her in matches this season. That forehand the rest of the way after going up 4-1. She ends the set with 17 unforced errors. 12 of them must have been on the forehand wing from 4-1 to the ending of that set, 7-5. Now, credit to Katie McNally, who made 82% of her first serves in the set, a ton of serves into that Swiatek forehand, 22 of 31 on those first serve points, 11 of 16 on the net. And when Katie McNally had a hip-to-shoulder height forehand, she got in behind it. She pressured Iga. She started to force the issue and, again, press that forehand, pressure the current world number 8, which is crazy to say out loud. That was the only gear McNally had, and she's really good at that skill in particular. But once Iga found her rhythm on the forehand return, she never lost it. Of course, that first serve percentage still high for McNally the rest of the way. She made 76% of her, not 76, 73% of her first serves in this match. The problem was Iga then became much more precise with her targets and keeping that return of serve out of the center third, forcing McNally to hit something with her feet not underneath her. Just McNally didn't have a ton of options from there when she wasn't getting forward. And again, when she got forward, she was exceptional. 18 of 31 at the net, but just 13 total winners in this match to Iga's 44. Again, 36 unforced errors for Iga, 16 for McNally, but it was all on Iga's terms, and she got a lot of free swings because she served really well through sets 2 and 3, and just, again, McNally tried to take some aggressive cuts that weren't available to her because of the precise serving of Iga. And look, you want to get tested in these early rounds. You want to get tested, but find your way through and ultimately comfortably, and that's what Iga did. Yes, this was a 3-set match, kept it under 2.5 hours. Certainly for Iga to have had the week of tennis under her belt last week, making her first grass court final leading into this, now to have a match like this where she ultimately gets through comfortably. The draw has opened up entirely. Again, according to Tennis Abstract, Iga is the favorite to emerge out of the bottom half of the draw, 24.9% favorite over Alexandrova and Rybakina, respectively. Obviously, that Rybakina match in the round of 16 looms large as the player whom she is 3-0 against and whom she beat from a 6-1 set deficit at the French Open, at the most recent major. It's a different surface, one obviously more advantageous for Rybakina. But boy, for Iga, next up, Danielle Collins. Like both of them, tricky matchups. Rybakina toss in. Collins, obviously, who has beaten Swiatek, has that inherent belief, likes the matchup relative to others. It's a massive opportunity for Iga. And again, the pathway to her for a Wimbledon final has never been clearer than it is here in 2025 with all of the upsets that have fallen everywhere else. Still, this bottom half is rounding into form. And again, with players like Alexandrova, Samsonova, Yastremska getting through in 3 sets today. Mira Andreeva feels like we haven't talked about her at all. What about defending champ Barbara Krejcikova, who I really haven't talked about at all? She gets a 3-set win today. The best case version of the bottom half of this draw playing out is really, really fun. And so certainly, again, seeing these women's seeds settle in and seeing Swiatek settle into that role as perhaps leader of the pack moving forward as well, it's going to be a fun finish these next 3-4 rounds at Wimbledon before we ultimately get to our final. And then, of course, Sinner, Djokovic. Look, there's not a ton to talk about from a tennis perspective with those guys. They cruised. Like, all due respect to Alex Vukic, who had some early looks in Jannik Sinner's first service game of the match. That's where the looks stopped. And, again, Sinner in this match, he won 69% of his first serve points, 76% of his second serve points, fought off all 4 break points that he faced. 38 winners for Sinner against 11 unforced errors. 16 of 21 at the net, 17 of 27 on second serve return points, 1-1 and 3. Like he advances, he's dropped just 12 games, which it's the fewest in a while at Wimbledon. Not the lowest ever. There are guys 3 guys tied. I saw the stat, 3 guys tied for who have dropped just 3 games through 2 rounds, which is freaking insanity. But yeah, Jannik Sinner did Jannik Sinner things. I don't know how else to describe it. He looked really good. Vukic just too limited on the backhand wing. Wasn't comfortable pulling it line enough. His big forehand swing just didn't get enough chances to work it on this surface. Sinner, sneaky good mover on this surface now as well. Sinner's he's so good day in, day out. He looked the part today in a 1-1 and 3 victory. And then, massive win for Novak. I mean, he should crush Dan Evans. Dan Evans, who doesn't have a definitive weapon to beat Djokovic with anything. And the backhand slice is just not going to do damage against the discipline of Novak Djokovic. 3-2-0. 3-2-0. Djokovic cruised. Faced just 2 break points. 46 winners against 14 unforced errors. I think he now has hit the century mark for 100 wins at Wimbledon. Again, that means he's won 100 matches at 2 different majors, and he hasn't done it in Australia yet, where he will. He hasn't done it in New York yet. Probably needs to play 2 more, probably, but maybe 3 more. Again, I so desperately want him to earn 100 victories at all 4 majors, just because I do legitimately think that might be a stat that never gets touched ever again. And if someone does, it means they're approaching his records as well. And just like we're talking about all-time greats, 100 wins. Again, it's 7 wins to win a major. You could win a major 14 consecutive years, and you've still only won 98 matches. He's done better than won it 14 consecutive years. He's just, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. 6 straight finals. All the upsets now in his draw. Draper getting knocked out. No reason to think another semifinal isn't there. And then we'll see if Sinner's ready for the test that is Djokovic, certainly on grass courts against Sinner. Djokovic, they absolutely cruise. They are ultimately through to round number 3. And again, we've touched on a lot of these things already, but let's talk about the upsets here quickly one more time as we look back on everything else that unfolded here in day number 3. On the women's side, just one upset today, finally. A day of calm, a day of peace. How about just Buses Mineiro? 1-6 for Buses Mineiro over Sofia Kenin. You look for Buses Mineiro, who, of course, now instead of facing second-seeded Coco Gauff, gets to face another unseeded player, albeit still very tough, in Diana Yastremska. I mean, she beat Navarro at Roland Garros, reached the 3rd round there. Now does it here. You look for Buses Mineiro with this success. She is up to 55 in the live rankings, 3 off the career high for the 22-year-old who moves well. Sneaky, explosive. I mean, again, Kenin, just too many chips that sat up for Buses Mineiro to attack authoritatively behind. Just never saw her rhythm broken. Kenin knocked out. You look overall, ultimately, for the women. It's in the end, let's see, doing quick math, I believe 17 seeds. Yeah, 17 of the 32. Oy. 17 of the 32 knocked out in rounds 1 and 2. But my finals picks are still alive. I'm going to hold on to that, and certainly talked about all the seeds rounding into form on the men's side. Again, Draper, Paul. How about August Holmgren? Holmgren joining Munar, Darderi, and someone else. As the players through to their first round 3s at this major specifically. I promise I'll figure out who it is as we move forward. I mean, the serving from August Holmgren was absolutely brilliant, and you look for an August Holmgren, what he's had to do just to reach this 3rd round. Obviously fought off match points in his opening match, and this match was down 4-5, love 40 serving, fights off match points there. Was broken just once in this match, fought off 9 of 10 break points that he faced, 81 winners, 35 aces, 26 of 38 at the net. By the way, just to put the final bow on it because it would have bothered me, it is Holmgren joining Darderi, Munar, and Bellucci as first-time 3rd-round appearances on the men's side. Yeah, I mean, again, for August Holmgren, the former San Diego All-American, 2022 NCAA singles finalist, where, of course, he was knocked off by Ben Shelton in a really fun 3-set match. this is the surface for him to thrive. You see how close he keeps those ground strokes to his body, how flat he wants to play things, the line drive of his one-handed backhand, the ability to redirect line, which is just such a skill to have on this surface, the comfort level as a volleyer, the eagerness to get forward. He just was able to rush Tomas Mahac on all three of those match points. Fine first serves, even though he made only 53% of his first serves in this match. You look for August Holmgren, was outside the top 175 before this event. He's up to a new career high. He's at 192 to start. Now he's up to a new career high, 145. And as our dear friend Brad Gilbert so eloquently put on Twitter, again, you look at what he was able to do in reaching this round of the major. Brad, where's Brad? I apologize. Because we're live, you got to hear the stuttering. Here we go. August Holmgren, down a set and a break in qualifying 1, set and a break in qualifying round 2, saves 3 match points in the 4th set of qualifying round 3, saves 3 match points now here in this match as well. So I apologize. The match points came qualifying round 3. What a moment for the 27-year-old again, up into the top 150 and just magic, finding magic with that first serve. Certainly one of the most enjoyable upsets you've seen. And again, 7-6, 6-7, 6-7, 7-5, 7-6. The 90s are calling. They want their grass court tennis back. That was certainly a fun one. Less fun if you're a Canadian tennis fan. Felix knocked out by Struff, 3-6, 7-6, 6-3, 6-4. Of course, Struff grabbing those final 2 sets here today as that match continued. All of the Canadians, Andreescu, Fernandez, Shapovalov, FAA, knocked out before round 3 of this Wimbledon. And I don't mean to beat on my friends Mike and Ben, who run the Matchpoint Canada podcast and are awesome people. It's one of the biggest what-ifs of the first half of this 2020s decade. What if things have worked out? What if things had worked out for the Canadians? Because let's take you back to 2020. Let's take you back to 2021. Certainly, coming off of 2021 feels more pertinent because Andreescu, U.S. Open champ 2019, and yeah, she dealt with a ton of injuries right after that, but 2019, 2020s, she's still in her early 20s. Her 20s are going to be throughout this decade. She's a major champion, and you saw how good she was when she was at her best. The sky-high prospects for her, sky-high prospects for, obviously, a teenage Leylah Fernandez who makes that U.S. Open final playing such exceptional tennis, beating Sabalenka, beating so many seeds on her way to that final with Raducanu. Again, you would have been so high on the two of them. Shapovalov makes a Wimbledon semi, real hype for Denis Shapovalov in the early 2020s, the lefty who, of course, had been a top 20 player in the world and threatening all the top players in the world as a teenager in his early 20s. And then maybe the best prospect of them all in Felix, who, again, kept setting all the records. Youngest player to win a challenger since X. Youngest player to win an ATP match since X. You had all those players either late teenage years, early 20s, start of the 2020s. Certainly one of them on each side was going to figure into the top 10 of the equation for the rest of the decade, right? How thoroughly has that not been the case? And there are so many different reasons. Injury's a big part of why it hasn't been. But it's one of my biggest what-ifs. What if things had worked out for the Canadians? What if that generation had just gotten things going? Because they all still possess, they're all still in their mid. I mean, Fernandez is still very much in her early 20s, and it just hasn't clicked the way I think all of us would have anticipated it would have. So certainly, again, Felix getting knocked out here second round. He's been so good in the 250s, struggled so thoroughly everywhere else, and yet, yeah, just all I can think about is what if. It's a bigger podcast topic for us to explore perhaps after this major championship expires. Still 4 more seeds knocked out, 19 seeds on the men's side, 17 on the women's side. It's been a healthy first 4 days of action, certainly through Wimbledon, of course. Those were your upsets, matches that went the distance on the day against Swiatek, the 3-set win. Kasatkina, 3 sets over Bagu. Krejcikova, big 3-set win over Dalahide. I think every match she's played so far on the grass courts has gone 3 sets. How about Yastremska, 3-set win over Zakharova. 3 third-round appearances for Yastremska at the majors this season. It is the best year of her career, no doubt about it. Gets through that 1-7-6 in the third. Then how about Belinda Bencic? Was so good in February, had some injuries, some things slow her down. Righten the ship as we get into her portion of the calendar. 3-set win for her over Jacquemot. 5 3-set matches today. 30 total matches going the distance so far on the women's side. Of course, for the men, Holmgren, that 5-set upset, and then Arthur Rinderknecht can't escape the 5 sets. He goes 5, but ultimately prevails as he knocks off Christian Garin. Your 2 5-set matches on the day, of course. Everything else coming off of day number 4, you certainly start, again, with a bunch of those seeds we already mentioned, all the straight set wins. Andreeva, Navarro, Rybakina, Alexandrova, Samsonova. Throw in Clara Tauson, an impressive 3-6 victory for her over Kalinskaya. Finally gets another swing at a top contender at a major here this year. Good to see her right the ship going into a summer hard court where obviously she could thrive as she did in the first 2 months of the year. How about Danielle Collins? Never been known for a grass court grass court prowess. She has been known for her grass court Collins, but grass court prowess. She gets a straight set victory today, sets up a kind of really fun matchup, certainly on paper, between her and Iga. Big story for Haley Baptiste. Might have buried the lead there. It's been the summer of Haley Baptiste. Round of 16 for the first time at the French Open. She follows it up with her first third round here at Wimbledon, knocking off Victoria Mboko 7-6, 6-3. You look for the 23-year-old into the top 50, up to 47 in the live rankings for the first time. And obviously that prepares her to play a full North American summer. Main draws. City Open, main draw. That's her hometown, obviously. Cincinnati, DC, Canada, main draw. You don't have to worry about U.S. Open. She's getting in. Then all the indoor hard courts she can play as well down the home stretch in Europe. Like, again, if you haven't seen the power tennis Haley Baptiste can play, if you haven't seen the touch, the slice, how comfortable she is as a volleyer, how well she gets back and knifes off the overhead, the serve is just a foundational piece. She's gotten even better as a mover. She's always had a powerful first step. She is certainly finding herself some form here in this summer of 2025. So a credit to Haley Baptiste through in straight sets over Mboko. Of course, Cocciaretto over volley nets. Then how about Zeynep Sanmez? I kind of referred to her loosely there, but the 23-year-old from Turkey up to a new career high, 72 in the world, in reaching now this round 3. You look for Sanmez, who earns the straight set victory today over Wang Xinyu. It's an upset, no doubt about it, 5-5. Really, really impressive stuff from the 23-year-old. And then on the men's side, again, Sinner cruising, Djokovic cruising. Bunch of men's seeds got tested. Demon dropped the opening set, but he rallies back 4-6, 6-2, 6-4, 6-love over Cazot. Cazot just kind of lost his legs as that match progressed. How about Jakub Menšik? He survived a very tough test. Maybe your most impressive men's win of the day is Menšik of the seeds, 6-4, 3-6, 6-4, 7-6 over the always tricky Marcos Giron, and certainly the weaponry of Menšik. It projects really well on this surface moving forward. How about Dimitrov? Healthy, passing the test, all the drop shots, all the angles, it didn't matter. 7-5, 4-6, 7-5, 7-5. He knocks off Corentin Moutet. You had Kaboli, straight set winner. Davidovich Fokina earns a 4-set win, continued from yesterday, closes things out, I should say, from 5-all. And Brandon Nakashima, good test for Nakashima. I had him on upset alert. 4-set victory for him over Riley Opelka. Again, a bunch of the men's seeds pushed today. Demonauer, Menšik, Dimitrov, Nakashima, all dropping sets, all ultimately prevailing. Again, just not that many seeds left to get knocked out. So glad we get to hang on to a few again. Munar into his first round 3. Darderi into his first round 3. Who would have thought for those two men it would come on the grass courts? Pedro Martinez, by the way, there's a name I haven't talked about in a while. The Spanish vet, straight set win over Navone, a match you'd expect in a Roland Garros round 2. Instead, it sends Martinez into round 3 of Wimbledon. How about the vets? 4-set wins, Kesmanovic. And then that Sonego section of the draw projected to be open. Lorenzo Sonego taking advantage of it. A 4-set victory for Sonego. Again, the opportunities continue, I think, for the Italian, as next up for Sonego, he will face off against Brandon Nakashima relative to what that matchup could have been. Again, an opportunity certainly for the Italian veteran to find himself in a second week. Matches suspended on the day. Gael Monfils all squared with Marton Fucsovics. Again, they're going to a 5th set. That'll be played in its entirety tomorrow. And then Ben Shelton, he might come out for just one service game. He is up 6-2, 7-5, 5-4, serving for the match against Rinky Hijikata. That's everything from day 4 of the action. And again, to recap, where are the Americans coming out of round number 2? The American women, 16-14 overall in the event. They finished this round 5-7 overall. I believe last season they went, it was like 5 and what was the number last year? I tweeted it out. I apologize. Last season, what were they? This year they were, again, 5-7 overall. Keys, Navarro, Anisimova, Collins, Baptiste, each advancing. Last year they went 5-4, overall. So 5 women once again for the Americans advancing to round number 3. Getting to play over the Independence holiday. Give us all something to watch here in this country over the holiday weekend. Again, Kruger, tough loss to the veteran Pavlyuchenkova and Lee, tough loss in 3 sets. The Kenin loss is disappointing. McNally lost to Swiatek and in 3. Dalahide lost to Krejcikova and in 3. Katie Volynets, you never would have penciled her in for a grass court specialist anyways, had a really good round 1 victory. So, again, 16-14 overall. You still got some contenders, Keys, Anisimova on the board. Look, the American women have already won 2 majors this year. They get a little leeway no matter what happens at this Wimbledon, but holding firm as we approach round number 3. Of course, on the men's side today, 1-3 overall. Again, Shelton leads, so that can get that to 2-3, and if he does ultimately earn the victory, the American men will be 13-13 overall through the first 2 rounds. I mean, look, we lost Tommy. We lost Francis. We've lost Mickelson, 3 of our seeds. We still have Fritz. We probably will still have Shelton, Nakashima moving forward, and hopefully we get them all into week number 2. Certainly talked about it yesterday in the bottom half. If anyone is going to beat Carlos Alcaraz, maybe the only man remaining in the draw who you could feasibly talk yourself into would be Taylor Fritz. So the American men have that for them, but certainly, again, after a promising opening round to see Tommy lose like he did, that was a struggle. Some American crime in Nakashima Opelka. Giron fought tough. Certainly you thought he was capable of pulling the upset there, but ultimately he knocks out Jakub Menchik. I mean, again, the American men, if they are ultimately 13-13 overall through the first 2 rounds, feels about fitting for what we've seen from them so far this season. And then, of course, on the college front, after such a thunderous start, the college men, you would expect some regression over the following 2 rounds. Certainly Tarvit losing to Alcaraz, Diallo losing to Fritz. You had today Vukic losing to Sinner, no shame in that loss. Menchik knocking off Giron, Pennington Jones, a loss to the seeded Kaboli. Obviously, Hijikata versus Shelton will be a college-on-college crime, but again, that you've got so many unseeded collegians, guys like Cam Norrie, some resurgence here. Nuno Borges continue to consolidate his top 35 spot. He reaches another 3rd round, beats a seed to do so in Francisco Cerundolo. Both him and Norrie beating seeds. August Holmgren beats Mahachir. Rinderknecht beat Zverev. Some really fun stories still remaining as we approach round number 3. And again, we will have 6 college men in the 3rd round of a major. That's got to be the most in recent memory. Norrie, Borges, Rinderknecht, Holmgren, Nakashima, and then one of either Shelton or Hijikata remaining. That leads us to the start of round number 3, your Day 8 preview. What can you enjoy for your 4th of July viewing? On the women's side, I ranked all 8 matches. All due respect to Noskova, Rakimova, Kartal Perry, Buxa versus Sierra. I don't know. Again, I would expect those matches to be relative straightforward. I think Noskova, Perry both advanced pretty comfortably. I'd lean Buxa as well there. Again, there are some signature matchups on the board. Keys faces the veteran in Siegemund. It's going to be a lot of attacking tennis there. Anisimova, another good test for her. She's looked really good through her first 2 rounds, but Dalma Golfi is tricky. Just throws a bunch of different looks at you. Top 3 matchups are marquee. Naomi Osaka, can she do something she hasn't done in a really long time? Not since the 2021 Australian Open has she reached the 2nd week of a major. She's got the draw to do so, taking on a veteran, obviously, in Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. Massive opportunity for both. Elisa Mertens, I mean, all she does is make 3rd round. She's got a shot. She's taking on 14th-seeded Alina Svitolina, I think has been pretty clearly one of the 8 best players in the world. And, again, would love to see a Svitolina-Sabalenka matchup or Svitolina-Raducanu matchup in the round of 16. And, by the way, the winner of Svitolina-Mertens faces off against your matchup of the day, prime time. It's on center court. Sabalenka versus Raducanu. It's the biggest opportunity for Emma Raducanu since the 2021 U.S. Open to just reestablish, no, I am a piece moving forward. And again, Emma Raducanu, despite everything she's been through, still just 22 years old. Still just 22 years old. In front of a home crowd, she is deadly. She has made the round of 16 at Wimbledon before. Obviously, just coming off of a straight set win over Vondrousova. You want to play the transitive property. Vondrousova beat Sabalenka on the grass courts 2 weeks ago. Hypothetically, she's got a shot. Her line drive tennis, can she generate enough pace on her own, or will that Sabalenka pace ultimately overwhelm her? I lean towards the latter, but I do think this one's going to be fun. This one's going to be spicy, so certainly looking forward to it moving forward. And, again, that's got to be your number one women's match of the day. Sabalenka, Raducanu, in what should be a pretty fun day number 5, though, on the women's singles side. And then on the men's side, look, again, all due respect, Rinder Kanesh-Maichak. I like that match. It's a massive opportunity for both. Norrie versus Bellucci. Bellucci's in his first major third round. Norrie looking to get back to second weeks for the first time in a long time. I'm pretty sure he made a semifinal at Wimbledon a couple of seasons ago. How about Jordan Thompson, the 5-set marathon man? 2 5-set victories. Can he get through Darderi, or is Darderi somehow going to find himself in a Wimbledon round of 16? Interesting storyline, certainly to monitor. Of course, on the seeded front, you've got Rublev versus Mannarino. Have to put Rublev on upset alert. I don't care how old Adrian Mannarino is. You give him a racket with the proper 22 pounds of tension. You throw him on a grass court. He's going to find a way to make any opponent's life miserable. Khachanov versus Borges. Just 2 vets going head-to-head. You love that. How does Alcaraz deal with the pace of Jan-Lennard Struff? It's another test for Alcaraz, certainly. Number 2 on my list, it's Fonseca. The chance for Fonseca at a second week. The chances we inch closer and closer to a Fonseca-Alcaraz second week major matchup as their first career head-to-head. Yeah, sign me up for it. Fonseca taking on the big serving Nicolas Yarri, who, of course, has amazing opportunity ahead. And then Taylor Fritz just can't escape the headlines. First, it was GMP. Next, it was Diallo. Now it's another seed. This time, it's a fellow seed in the 26-seeded Davidovich-Fokina. Of course, your reminder, the Davidovich-Fokina recently married, 26-year-olds, having the best season of his career. He's 16th in the points race right now, has displayed a degree of consistency we had just never seen from the Spaniard in years prior. Fritz, Davidovich-Fokina, power versus athleticism, power versus creativity, clutchness versus you never know what you're going to get from the Davidovich-Fokina side, clutchness versus occasional brilliance. Sign me up. That's a really fun match. It's going to be a really fun day 5, and thus, of course, we will be back here tomorrow to recap all of the day 5 action for all of you. So to make sure you don't miss out on any of the action or to catch up on anything you might miss throughout each and every day of these Wimbledon Championships, make sure you hit that subscribe button here on our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Mini Break podcast feed as well, of course. A shout out, as always, to the tireless efforts of our super producer, Daniel Westoff, for the job he does day in, day out, making all of our content possible. A shout out to the support we get from our friends at the Laurel Spring School, and, of course, a shout out to all of you fans who tune in, day out as well. Again, first 2 rounds of the 2025 championships at Wimbledon now officially in the books. It's only going to heat up from here. Looking forward to continuing to cover the action for all of you tennis fans. With that said, though, for our fantastic super producer Daniel Westoff, our friends at the Laurel Spring School, and from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Believe Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. You know what we say. That's the break. And we'll talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.